Onimusha is a series I've been wanting to dive into for a very long time. Being a massive Resident Evil fan, this series seems to be like the old school Resident Evil games, but you are a samurai and use mainly swords instead of firearms. And of course, it's made by Capcom. Sounds like a good time. And with the franchise coming back with a brand new entry out in 2026, it's a good time to check out the series. Onimusha Warlords released first for the PlayStation 2 in 2001. It was originally planned to release for the PlayStation 1 and then was scrapped and made into the PS2 game we see today. The PlayStation 1 version looks very similar to the final version of the game as well. There is some videos floating around online of the build. Before Onimusha came to be though, the franchise started off as a game called Sengoku Biohazard, a ninja version of Capcom's own 1996 Resident Evil. The game would be set in the Sengoku period and featured a ninja house filled with booby traps similar to the mansion from Resident Evil. It would have been released on the Nintendo 64 too. That fell through though, of course, and molded into Onimusha. But you can clearly still see the vibes of Resident Evil in these games. Later on from the PS2 version of Warlords, it went through many changes and was released as Genma Onimusha for the Xbox in 2002. The main thing with this version is the game was made a lot harder. I haven't played Genma yet, but it seems a lot of people swear by it and say it might be the best version of the game. I'll definitely check it out next time I run through the game. A remaster for the original PS2 version was released worldwide in 2019 for the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One and Steam, which is the version you can still play on current platforms and is the version I mainly played recently. I've been through the game twice, even getting the Platinum Trophy for it, and let me tell you, this game is really good. Let's go over the story. Spoilers ahead. Timestamps will be below. The franchise of Onimusha, I've heard, uses real-life events and puts a spin to them, which is really nice. With Warlords, the game takes place in the Sengoku period. The start of the game, you'll see the Battle of Akojima. In this battle, the heavily outnumbered Oda clan troops, commanded by Oba Nobunaga, defeated Umigami Oshinoto and established Oda as one of the front-running warlords in the Shingu period. My apologies if I'm pronouncing anything wrong, by the way. In the game though, after Oda's victory in that battle, he ends up getting an arrow to the neck, killing him. Later on in the game, you'll find out that Ota has become a servant of the Genma. Genma is just a way of saying demon. Oda commands the demonic forces to kidnap Princess Yuki so he can sacrifice her to obtain more power. Yuki's cousin, Samanosuke, receives word of this and sets off to rescue her with his friend, Kaidi. It is up to both of them to stop Oda and save Japan from a demon invasion. There is a bit more involved with the story, but that's the overall base. You play Samanosuke and you are trying to save Princess Yuki throughout the whole game. The game has notes throughout detailing different events in the war. For me though, a lot of it misses me since I personally don't know too much about the Shingoku period. But for people who are really knowledgeable, you'll definitely get a kick out of the overall story and notes. The main story plot I think is good enough to keep the pace going and motivation. The game is paced really well, but maybe that's because you can beat the game very quickly, which is the case for most survival horror type games. And personally, I rather play games that are on the shorter side, so I was pretty happy. The characters though are fine. I didn't really get attached to any of them, though I think the main character, Samanosuke, is a cool guy and has good values. Being someone that has travelled the world and sees how pointless the wars are, he's a good character to go against the evil of the world. The writing though was a bit bland and everything felt very standard, though I didn't mind the voice acting and I think it's a lot better in the original Japanese version. Also, one thing that kept bothering me was not being able to skip cutscenes, which is super frustrating. I know it's an old style for games, but the remaster should have at least added a skip button. I don't know how many times I had to rewatch boss intro cutscenes because I died trying to do the no-hill run. The main thing though with this game that made me fall in love was the gameplay. Let's go over that.
Humans are more tasty when angry, and I haven't eaten in a while.
Resident Evil is my favourite franchise, and this game has a lot of old school gameplay of RE all over it. Fixed camera angles, tank controls, puzzles and backtracking. The difference between Resident Evil and this game is in RE you are mainly trying to avoid creatures, but in Onimusha you are taking the fight to them. So you could say it's a mix of RE and DMC, but mechanically it's very much a RE clone. But then again, so was Devil May Cry 1. Fun fact time, Konami overlooked Onimusha's development and seen there was a bug which resulted in the enemies flying up into the air. Seeing that was partly responsible for the Devil May Cry's famous air-based combat. So there you go. Back to the review. You'll slowly unlock more of the castle as you go on, like the Spencer Mansion. New demons will pop up as you progress, and of course you'll have boss fights throughout too. With the weapons, you'll begin the game with a standard katana and can also obtain long-range weapons with limited supply. The match lock is the winner with long range. With swords, as you progress you can gain, each with an elemental magic attack. Some very cool powers to play around with, and you can upgrade each as well. They can be very helpful taking on the larger foes. As enemies are defeated, they release different coloured souls that are absorbed by using the demon's Oni gauntlet on Samanosuke's wrist. Red souls act as currency, which can be used to upgrade weaponry. Yellow souls recover health, while blue souls recover magic power, which can be used to perform each weapon's elemental abilities. Samanosuke gains the gauntlet after getting smacked by a demon, and then the Oni spirit clan gift him the gauntlet to fight the demons. Some sections are played with Samanosuke's partner, who has her own array of weapons and abilities, but is unable to absorb souls. I mainly would just run around demons when playing her. Her sections are very short, and overall, since you can't absorb souls or upgrade, her sections feel a little bit pointless. The gameplay overall though is pretty fun, especially if you're a fan of old school survival horror. It very much plays like one, but the themes can be somewhat Devil May Cry with the action combat, and the game isn't trying to scare you, but you are fighting a lot of demonic foes. I had a lot of fun playing. The game can also be challenging depending on how you go about it. I went through the game not healing or upgrading to get the trophies, but with upgrading and healing, the game isn't too challenging. Well, I didn't find it too challenging. Ultimate difficulty is even easier since you can get an overpowered sword out of the gate, even though that is meant to be a harder difficulty. With that sword though, it's just child's play. The game does have a side mode in the main menu where you've got to destroy a certain amount of vases each level before demons do. It's not too bad, but once you do it all, you won't want to go back to it. There's also a tower challenge in-game called the Demon Realm, where you go up floors and will fight harder and harder foes. If you can get to the end, you'll get an item that will give you the best sword going into the last boss fight. You'll talk to one of the Mothmen to gain access. The cool boss fights for me would be the one fighting the doppelganger. I had a hard time beating him trying to get the no healing trophy done. When I got to that section, I had hardly any health, so 3 hits and I was dead. That was a real struggle, but it was very satisfying once I actually beat him. And the ending boss was good too. My daughter ended up seeing me playing that part, and now she asked me to play the game where I saved the princess from the dragon, so that's a little memory for me there. In the final boss fight, you'll see a new form the main character gets. Would have been great to play with that form, but it's just in a cutscene, which is a shame. Would have been nice to have 2 parts to the final boss fight, with the second half having you defeat the boss with that form. But also the game does do a good job to set up a second game, especially with all the outros for each character. In terms of the look of the game, I am a sucker for PS2 graphics, so I think it looks great. But even talking on the remaster, I think the game overall still looks nice. The characters' environments are all detailed, especially the pre-rendered backgrounds. Really love the look of the Demon Realm. The look with having pre-rendered backgrounds with more detailed 3D models does remind me a lot of the Resident Evil 1 remake and RE0. So of course, really I would love all of it. Another main issue with the game that kept popping up for me is there seems to be too much camera angles in some spaces. Like the Demon Realm for example, such a small area but it has 3 different camera angles to it. It can get a bit confusing and push you off a bit from time to time. With a game like this that focuses a lot on combat, you don't want to be put off too much, so that can be an issue. Anyways, let's finish up. This is a great game and I loved playing through it. If you are a survival horror fan, you will love this game, just for the mechanical side of it. Or if you're a fan of samurai type combat games, this is a great game to check out as well. I look forward to checking out the rest of the series, and you can keep up to date when I do by subscribing to the channel. With that, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. That'd be greatly appreciated.